So this is our last one for this semester. Next semester, we will have at least 3, and we possibly have an outside the box, which is when we bring non-alumni back to talk about what they're doing in their career, to give you some inspiration and some guidance and talk to you about exciting things what other things you could be doing. So let's see, I'm trying to think if I have any other announcements. Anything? We're good? Okay. So if you haven't, how many of you have not been to a Life on Tap yet this semester? Okay, excellent. Are you all freshmen? Yes? Okay, excellent. So welcome to Life on Tap in general. The way it'll work is I will introduce our guests, ask them some questions, and we'll probably talk for about an hour, and then we'll give you all a chance to ask questions. Gabrielle in the back has a microphone that when we get to the Q&A time, she will walk around and bring the microphone to you so you can ask a question of our guests, and they will probably stay for a little bit afterwards to answer any individual questions you might have. So, all right, now let's get started with introductions. So first, to my left, we have Peter Cermak, who graduated in 2021, and you may recognize that last name. Both Rachel and Mark are here. I don't know if Mark is actually in the building. Maybe? No. Okay, he's not, but he goes here. You all know who he is. But Peter majored in mathematics and natural sciences. John, I'm hearing a lot of echoing. We're good now? Okay, great. So Peter majored in math and natural sciences. He is a project manager with Clark Construction Group, a general contractor in the commercial construction industry. He oversees the delivery, installation, and coordination of over $1 million in construction per month. This involves problem solving and logistical planning in the field, as well as negotiation and coordination with subcontractors, architects, engineers, developers, and governing authorities. His specialties include various building facade types, as well as building systems, which include HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. And I'll just say now, and I want you to expand on this later, but Peter did an internship with Clark Construction while he was a student here. And so then he was offered a full-time job. So we'd love to hear that story later. All right, next we have Gail Peterson, who also graduated in 2021. She also majored in math and has worked at virtual service operations since graduation. She learned the ropes of the trade as an assistant PM, project manager, and now leads her team as the project manager. She feels like project management is the perfect fit for anyone who loves problem solving, organization, and working with people. Since her job is remote, Gail has spent the last year living in Colorado and is actually now living in Texas, which she flew all the way out here to be with you all today. She loves hiking, staying active, and trying new things, and is always catching a flight to go visit her family and friends. And her dad is here with us, too. So hello, Mr. Peterson. And finally, we have Daniel Llera, who graduated last year in 2022. Gosh, that was, last year. We're still in 2023. He majored in political science and economics, and he works as a project manager at Level 1 Property Solutions in Winchester. He oversees the planning, execution, and completion of rehab and renovation projects. His background in construction and farm and ranch work gave him the hands-on knowledge to understand the practical aspects of construction management. Further education from time in seminary and then later here at Christendom honed his communication skills and knack for problem solving. In his free time, he enjoys working with horses and getting out of the office to explore his newfound home here in Virginia. He is from Montana, so, right? I got that right? Yes. What?
Close enough.
Close enough? Okay. And his lovely fiance is here, somewhere in the audience, Rose. So, yes. And actually, Peter's lovely wife and children are here. So we've got just a whole, fan club for all of you all tonight. So I'm excited. All right, so let's dive in. How many of you all know what project management is? Yes, Rachel, good sister. Good sister. Okay, so not very many of you. So I'd love to start out with just simply, can you all explain it and tell us about kind of tell us from your point of view in the work that you currently do. Peter, get us started.
Can you all hear me? So project management in the construction industry, and it varies greatly from industry to industry. The title is quite an umbrella that I can only speak to the construction side of. Project management is, you're managing essentially a business within a business. And the larger business is the project, and you sort of oversee the coordination of all of the, as a general contractor, you have all of your subcontractors. So you oversee the coordination and completion of their work. At the same time, you're managing your own direct responsibility within the project. That's sort of that business within a business. And so that's what makes it different from maybe a business manager, where you don't actually have any direct role in the performance of the work. You have a section of it, but you also are responsible for the overall coordination of it. So that really is what project management is that overseeing of the broader project, all these other contractors who make up the sort of overall delivery of, in our case, a building. You oversee the coordination of that, as well as, on top of that, you have to run your own little business inside of this and make sure you're meeting your own requirements.
Awesome. Okay, that's helpful. Lots of coordination we're hearing. Yes, Gail?
Can you guys hear me okay?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. How about now?
There we go.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So I'm a project manager in the IT industry, which, as Peter said, it's different across what industry you're in. Generally, I would describe the project management that I have dealt with as, lots of organization. The organization and execution of a project or whether that's you're offering a product or offering a service from start to finish. So I've worked on 2 different projects in the past 3 years. The first one, we were going to a whole bunch of different hospitals across the US and installing switches and servers to upgrade their LAN internet network. The one that I'm on now, it's more of a steady state project management. There are servers and systems that we manage for Pratt & Whitney that we do coordinate monthly maintenance on so that their shop floors and their production floors can actually produce the airplane parts for Pratt & Whitney. So there's a couple different, colors that project management can take, but it generally looks like a lot of organization, a lot of communication between yourself, your peers, the technical people, and then also executive communication towards the client, and the actual execution of when the project is unfolding and seeing it through to the end when it's complete.
Okay, that's helpful.
Can you guys hear me okay? I would almost say I'm somewhere in the middle of both of those. So I usually struggle to tell people what my job even is, but so I usually say I do construction management, but I do it entirely remote. So I would sort of, similarly to Peter's idea, there's a lot of managing subcontractors, permitting, things like that, where you're sort of making sure all the moving parts happen and when they need to happen, and everyone's where they need to be. But also there's a lot of sort of executive client side facing. So my company manages repairs and remodels for banks, both foreclosure type work and then trust funds. So I would say rather than, construction management is sort of the overall thing, but I would say most of what I do is just communication. So yeah, I would just phrase it mostly as a communications manager. So I make sure each of the different sides of it, everyone knows what everyone else is trying to communicate. So I'm in the middle translating all the different, the different way everyone communicates. So a contractor is going to talk very differently than, a banker or a trust officer, and they might be, and then in between them are, the people who live in these homes. Some of them are disabled, some of them are elderly. It varies case to case. So you can't talk to a contractor the same way that you talk to a banker, and vice versa. So I would say most of what I do is just organization and communication.
Okay, so Peter, you mentioned that you're doing a business within a business, you're overseeing these people doing this project. Do they technically report to you? Are you supervising them in a way, or no?
So you are, as a general contractor, sort of the way it works is the owner, that can be anyone from an actual like land developer to some guy who needs his office space renovated, has no idea anything about construction. They have their vision for what they want. They get some architect to draw it up. We give them a price, and then we have to perform the work. And you know, most of that work is going to be subcontracted out, and so we are responsible still for the end product delivered to the owner. So quality control, supervision, scheduling, all of our submittals, making sure that, you know, to take an easy example, like the tile that the tile guys are going to use, we submit the data on it first and so this is what you want, right? So we oversee that entire process of making sure that from start to finish, the owner has total clarity on what they're getting, when they're getting it, who it's coming from, and how much it costs.
Okay.
So, and then overseeing the quality side of it so that, you know, the architect that they got to draw it looks at it and says, yes, this is what I drew. This is living up to the quality standards that, you know, you're paying for.
Yeah, okay. And so, Gail, with yours, do you have anybody that kind of reports to you?
Right now, I just took over my boss's position as like overseeing the team, so we're in a transition phase. So I manage the day-to-day of the team. I will do team assignments, make sure that everyone's submitting their hours, etc. But technically, they do report to, you know, the manager above us all.
Okay.
You know, and how you have one-on-ones with them, and you know, check-ins, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Same kind of question to you, Daniel.
Yeah, yes. So any contractor that's doing work for a client reports directly to me.
Okay.
I think that's probably the biggest reason why I like the field that I'm in, is any job that we're doing, I'm responsible for. So if it's my job, I get to run it. I make sure things are going smoothly. The flip side of that is if things aren't going smoothly, you have to be the one to fix it. So I would say, yeah, any of our contractors that I'm doing a project with report directly to me. So.
Okay, yeah. Can you all tell us how you got into project management? Because I imagine most of you aren't like, hey, Mrs. Stevens, I really want to be a project manager. That sounds great. Because you don't really know that it exists. So how did you kind of come about it? How did you get into it? Gail, why don't you tell us how you got into it?
You. So I had an internship with VSO, Virtual Service Operations. It was for something different. It was for coding, you know, software development. I did it over the summer between my junior and senior year. I did not really like it much. It also didn't play to my strengths. But we did have a period of the internship where I did a different job, and I was on a team managing people, making sure that everyone was working together, and, you know, delivering to the client, and that was the best part of that internship. So, you know, I had been meeting with Mrs. Kristen my senior year, and we just talked about what I hadn't liked from my internship and what I did, and you know, the main things I'd point out is, you know, I liked organizing things, I liked working with people, you know, I liked rallying together and, you know, completing something, you know, actioning towards a goal. And she's like, oh, have you ever thought about project management? And I was like, what's that? So, yeah, and so we were looking through jobs throughout my senior year, and one of them opened up through VSO, so interviewed and, you know, came back to them, so. Yeah.
I kind of forgot about all of that. I wasn't trying to say like, hey, please talk great about me. It was more of, yeah, I knew that VSO had come. So by the way, if you're not familiar with VSO, Virtual Service Operations, it is an alumni founded and run company. So Christendom alumni, there's so many Christendom alumni that work there. And in Gail's year, they came to campus, and I think they hired 6 or 7 of your classmates in lots of various jobs, and many of them are still working there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Phoebe, you, Marcus.
Yeah.
Marcus Heinfield is doing software development. Phoebe was doing software development too, I think. And so they came to campus. So when we have all these wonderful people standing in the front of the Commons to talk to you, I promise they are here for a really great reason. They can interview you and offer you a job. So, but yes, I do remember that conversation about us talking about, you're telling me all of those strengths and saying like, well, hey, you could put it together in project management.
Yeah.
So I'm glad, that's why we're bringing you all here to kind of explain that to the students so that I don't have to be the one to say it too. All right, Peter, how did you get into it? Because you started out with an internship.
I did. So my internship was the summer before my junior year. I had heard of Clark. Pretty much anyone who sort of grew up in the DMV, DC area probably has seen the Clark signs on, about half of the big buildings that go up in the area. So I sort of knew what they did. And I had always sort of been interested in, I guess, more design, but also just sort of, working with my hands, doing DIY or construction type things. And so I decided to just, apply for an internship. I got put on, for that summer, I was dropped in this hospital project, team of about 10 people on the Clark side, about 200 people total a day, and basically was told, okay, this the flooring subcontractor, like we should be half done by now. They don't have anything done. We don't think they're going to even finish the job, but we need you to get as much as you can out of them before the summer is over. So that was my introduction to project management.
Can you tell us more about that? What did that look like?
The contractor did end up defaulting, meaning they legally informed us they could not fulfill the terms of their subcontract, and so we ended up essentially buying the remainder of their work with a different subcontractor. So day to day what that looked like was come into the foreman's meeting at 6 a.m., ask them how many guys they have, where they're working, who's in their way, because everyone's in the flooring guy's way. If you put a box somewhere, it's in the flooring guy's way. And then documenting all of that, tracking their progress and their quality of their progress, and then just trying to find ways to make them more efficient, and protect ourselves in the process, because we knew that this was going to go to litigation. We take away half of their subcontract. They sue us for mismanagement. That's how that worked. So a rosier picture could not have been painted from the outset.
And yet
but no,
you stayed
I loved
with them.
it. I loved it. It was great. I got to go in there, and there was basically nowhere to fail, because the failure had already occurred.
Oh.
So they just dropped me. They dropped me in this situation. The head guy on the Clark team said, we're just going to drop you in this dumpster fire, and we're asking you to just get as much out of it as you can. So.
And then you came back another summer, right? You
I did.
enjoyed it so much.
I did, yes.
Okay.
I enjoyed the dumpster fire. They didn't put me in another dumpster fire. They put me in pre-construction, so where I essentially did budgets for the owner, but I wasn't the one who dictated the budget. I said how much the work would cost, because the owner has their budget, and they have these these drawings, which usually cost about 20% more than what their budget will actually allow. So on the pre-construction side, it's, here's how much each of the items in this construction project costs. Here's where we think you could save money to get back down to the budget. You're being inefficient here, you're spending too much money on this, not enough on this, and we compare to other projects of a similar type to help them get back down to the number that it needs to be. So that was my second summer with them. Basically, client has 100 million and the budget's 110, and we have a week to figure out how to get it back down to 100.
Wow. Okay, that's intense. Tell us about how you ended up getting a full-time job offer.
Just through the internship. I mean, a lot of these companies, they'll send out offers, a week or two after the internship ends.
Really?
It's your dry run, it is your interview. They do an exit interview at the end of your internship, which is essentially, they don't call it this, but it is your job interview in combination with your performance evaluation for the course of that internship. So.
Nice. All right. Thanks. And Daniel, how did you get into it?
I had a similar experience to Gail, actually. I had everything planned out senior year, and it all fell through. And I came into Kristen's office in early April.
Oh, I thought it was like May.
It was it was
getting to the wire.
Close. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no plans. I need a job. And the job posting that I ended up taking as a project manager at level 1 was posted on Christendom's job website. And I'd seen it, and I brushed past it. I was like, I don't know anything about that. I don't really want to do that. And there were some things on the listing that I was like, I can't make that work. So I didn't think about it. I walk into the office, and Kristen's like, okay, well, what's going on? I'm like, I have no plan. I need a job. I was kind of, worried. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I didn't want to go home and live in my parents' basement. So Kristen's like, well, let's look at the job board. And she pulls up this listing, and I'm like, oh, well, that won't work. The salary is not big, high enough, and this and this and this. And she's like, well, I know Tim. Tim Cook is my boss. It's Timmy Cook here, the dean of students. It's his father owns the company. And she's like, I'll shoot him an email, and we'll try to figure something out. And we did some resume work, and I went in for an interview. I had a really good interview, enjoyed the time, and about a week later, got a job offer. It was more than I was expecting, and started work. And honestly, I wouldn't have the job if it weren't for Kristen. She's like, she knew something about project management. She knew a little bit about the work. She's like, I think you'd be good at that. You should look at it. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have anything else going on. Sure, I'll try it. And then I fell into it, and I love it. It's a great job.
So I think one of the things, your hesitation was the salary amount was a lot lower than he was hoping for. And so what I did was I emailed Mr. Cook and kind of said something about that. And he's like, well, we start him at that, and then after 6 months we do this, and we offer bonuses, and we offer raises at this time and this. And it was like, yes, you might start out at this point, but if you show that you're competent and you're committed and you're doing the work, we can quickly move you up here. And that was kind of your experience, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, so don't let the posted salary hold you back from applying to something, because you never know what kind of raise and bonus structure they have in place, which is actually one of my questions that you all should ask when you go to an interview, not for an internship, and not for a part-time job, but for those full-time jobs in the future. You want to ask, what does your bonus and raise structure look like? It was one of my printed questions for Mr. McFadden when I interviewed here. So that's an important part of the longevity of you deciding to stay at a place, is understanding that. So, okay. Well, thank you all for sharing that. Tell us about, I guess, what opportunities did you take advantage of either here at Christendom or after or during your summers that helped you do the work you're doing now? It could be completely unrelated to project management, but what kinds of things did you take advantage of? Gail?
Well, I think number one would be, applying for the internship with VSO. That's obviously job related. I think it's really important when you're deciding what field or what job you want to do is to, I guess, try a couple things out if you can, but also do self-reflection on, you know, what are your skills, what are your strengths, because, you know, I've known some people, they might go from job to job because they're not finding what they're looking for, but you can help avoid some of that by really understanding yourself, understanding what you like to do, understanding what you're good at, and, you know, looking for a field that has those aspects in it. So, you know, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Peter, was there anything outside of the internship that you took advantage of that helped you train or learn more about project management?
I would say one thing that helps a lot, and if you're going into any profession where you're going to be leading or managing anyone, you need to learn this skill, and it's how to run a meeting.
Oh, yes. I like
So
that.
if you're involved in clubs or anything like that on campus, learn how to actually run those meetings effectively, because that is going to serve you so much. Everyone hates having to go to a meeting where there's no agenda, there's no set goals, they budget too much time, and then they try to fill the time with a bunch of fluff. And at the end of the meeting, you're wondering, why did we have to go to that? What did we accomplish? And oh my gosh, I hope there isn't another one coming.
Yeah.
Learn how to run a meeting. And the only way to do that is to practice.
Sure. Okay. I'm also thinking there might be a LinkedIn learning course about running effective meetings. I'll look that up and send it your way. Not your way. You seem to have it covered. Your way. I'll send it your way. Yeah. Daniel, what else?
I would say if you, depending on what field you're in, having practical hands-on experience in your field is very, very helpful. So I would assume, having done some software development, being able to understand if a software developer comes to you and says, oh, I'm having this issue, I'm running late because of X, Y, Z, you're like, okay, that makes sense. I know what, you know, I understand why that happens. I did some of that myself, whatever that. Same thing with construction. If you're like, hey, I've done some of that, I understand, at least to an extent, you don't have to be an expert, but understanding the basics of, oh, I did that. I know how things go wrong or things take longer than expected, or, you know, people get injured, whatever, you know, all kinds of things. You having practical hands-on experience is great. Not always necessary, but definitely helpful. And then I would sort of echo your point, just do different things in your spare time, in your, you know, summers, you know, before, if you have time, before coming to Christendom, during Christendom, do different things. And the more variety of experiences that you have, the more well-rounded you'll be. And that helps in any sort of general management. Yeah.
Okay. So that reminds me of a time that I was on an airplane and I talked to the woman next to me and asked what her job was. And she said she was a project manager. And I said, where at? And she said, at Target. And I said, well, what do you do at Target? And she's like, I'm in the linens department. So like each individual department within these big department stores, you know, whether that's Walmart or Target or Macy's, they have, you know, at the kind of the corporate office, they have project managers running different types of projects. And so I think she and I were talking about her having to manage the advertising for the linens. So, you know, towels and bed sheets and comforters and all that kind of stuff. So it's like planning out the sales, planning out the marketing for it. And so she had different people that reported to her. And so she probably had some knowledge of that, or you have to learn while you're on the job. So it's like, don't go into project management in linens if you don't like linens and you have no interest in it. Same with construction. It might be really difficult if you have zero desire to understand it. So I love that piece of it. Thank you. All right, so now, Peter, tell us about a time you've struggled in your job, besides the dumpster fire that you were thrown into very quickly.
So there's a lot to struggle at in construction.
Okay.
You've got, but I think probably the most enduring struggle is managing your relationships on site with the people who you see every day, And because they have their own ideas about how they want to do the work, when they want to do the work, how it should be done, also whether that specific portion of the work is even theirs to do by contract. And so you can very quickly end up with no allies on site if you communicate poorly, if you tell someone thing and then tell them another thing the next day. If you're inconsistent like that, or if you tell someone who is like an actual just a craft worker, if you don't tell their foreman that you told that guy to do something, well, now he's working on something, the foreman comes and sees he's doing it. I didn't tell you to do that. Who told you to do that? You burn up your relationships extremely quickly. As soon as the heat turns up from the owner, like, oh, well, we need to pull the schedule forward a little bit, or that is the hardest part of project management, I think, is when things are difficult to not just... Relationships are like currency, and sometimes, you do have to push a little bit. You do have to spend a little bit of that relationship capital to get things done, but it's really easy to burn through it, and then you're standing at the end of the job, and it's not complete, and no one owes you any more favors, and they're all angry at you. That happens so often.
Yeah.
It's definitely the hardest part of project management, so I would say that's a continual struggle.
Okay, so communication and relationship building. Yeah, Gail?
I think back onto the first project that I did, definitely was a big learning curve for me, but one story, and this is like kind of funny, but so we were going around to different cities in the US, going to their hospitals, Veterans Affairs hospitals, and installing, switches, servers. So I was, as part of my job as project manager for that, was coordinating the travel, coordinating everybody's, hotel rooms, all that stuff. And everyone's coming in from different parts of the US, right? So it was, to get everyone from everywhere to one spot. So we had been through the project for a couple months, and a lot of the guys, became buddies with each other, so sometimes we would do Airbnbs, right, for everyone to stay in, and they also coincidentally were more cost effective. They were cheaper than giving everyone, an individual hotel room. So I would always do as much research as I could to figure out, what's the best fit, where is the location, how close is it to the hospital, all that stuff. And there was this one where on the listing, it looked great, it looked clean, and so I booked it for the guys, and they show up, and it's a trailer home in a trailer park in, the dimmest, the slums of town, which you couldn't tell that, from the photos. So, so definitely was a miss there, but the point to that is kind of along what Peter's saying, but with relationships, but more so the line of there's going to be times where you have to straddle, keeping people happy, keeping morale, while also, furthering the goal of the project, making sure you're staying within budget. So, sometimes those are both things that you're going to have to think about in your job as you're moving forward to a project's completion. You don't want to burn bridges, but at the same time, you also need to get the project done. So, finding that middle ground to try and, keep most everyone happy, but while also completing the project effectively, is something that is pretty necessary with project management.
Yeah. Did they end up staying in the Airbnb?
They did. They
toughed it out?
They made a big fuss about it, but it was fine.
Okay, excellent. All right, Daniel?
I think most of the struggle is, when things aren't going right. But even sometimes just being busy, and you get a lot on your plate, and you're like, how am I going to manage all of this? And that sometimes that can be like, okay, I've got a lot going on, sometimes too much going on. But I think I had one job that got done about 4 months ago, It was a condo out in Atlanta. A guy had a flood, and long story short, what should have been like a 2-week, tear some carpet out, pat some drywall job, turned into gutting his entire condo and about 2.5 months worth of various remediation and whatnot. There was asbestos, and what started out a very, very small project turned into somewhat of a giant project overnight. And at the very end of it, the guy gets all moved back in, everything's fine, and he calls me at about 11 o'clock at night and says, I have water coming out of my washing machine. And the gentleman who lives in the condo, he's mentally handicapped a little bit, and all I hear is him freaking out about all the water pouring out of his dryer after we spent a month and a half renovating his brand new condo. Oh. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do about it now. I couldn't get a hold of the GC and his plumber. So the next morning I'm driving into work, I call him back, and he's like, oh, it's so bad, there's all this water, and I'm stressing out because we just finished, and it was, about almost $70,000 worth of work between the demo and the asbestos and whatnot. And all right, so I call our contractor. He gets out there about 20 minutes later, sends me a couple pictures of a puddle around the door of his laundry room, and he says, yeah, a valve, was bad. I changed it. It's all fine. He set a fan down, and everything was fine. And a few days later, couldn't even tell it had happened. But so you get things like that where everything's going fine, everything's done, and then bam. And you're like, okay, everything's fine, it's all fine, but that couple hours in between, oh my gosh, everything's not fine, and oh wait, we're all good, everything's fine, was, and about a week later, I found another gray hair, and I was like, oh, yeah, that was from that job. So, you get random things where you're like, oh, okay. So just managing that. Everything's going wrong, but it's fine. Attitude is
important to have.
Yeah.
Water is a constant struggle.
I hate water.
The construction industry, I think, is about a $10 trillion a year industry, about $200 billion a year of rework.
Yeah.
Wow.
And 90% of that is water damage.
Oh yeah.
So you've got to have a good plumber.
$180 billion worth of water damage
That's insane.
every year.
Wow. Okay, so I have a two-part kind of question. One, I want you to tell our students here, why are they so well equipped, being Christendom students, to become project managers? And if they're interested in it, what should they be doing to prepare for it? So whichever part of the question you want to tackle, ready, go. Daniel.
I would say Christendom overall does a very, very good job of pushing their students to be professional. Not every college, not every profession encourages that attitude, that mindset of communicating in a respectful and, quite frankly, an adult way with professionals. I think most of the professors here, the staff, sort of encourage that communication, both in example and in just demanding excellence from their students. And so being able to communicate with professionals, I think, is a very big part of what Christendom helps their students with. You can't send an email to a professional and say, what are you doing, ? And just send. You can't do that. And I think most of your professors would ignore an email like that or call you out for it. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. If you are interested in project management, hone the ability both to communicate orally and speaking with different kinds of people, and then just work on your practical writing skills. There's the Chester Belloc Debate Society. That's great. You can learn to, okay. Some people know what's up. So that's a great way. And then some people, getting involved with management on campus. There's clubs, the RA team, sports, that sort of thing. So just do something where you're working with other people as much as possible, and different types of people. get outside your friend group and work with different kinds of people. That's what I'd say.
Okay. Gail?
Is anybody a math major? Okay, good. Okay, definitely answer. I will say, in my experience, the math major has helped me a lot in my job, just in the aspects of problem solving, the ability to have a problem right in front of you, be able to kind of assess it, see where the gaps are, see where the weak points are, and be able to problem solve and find a solution quickly and effectively. So personally, that has been very helpful for me. What I would say in addition to that, and also to the second part of the question of what you can do as a student if you're interested in project management, is regardless of what major you're in, the academic rigor is, or the academic schedule that all of you all have, it is very intense regardless. So honing the skills of time management and prioritization will really help you in project management, because if you have a paper due on Tuesday, I have a report that I have to present to the client on Friday afternoon. So it's the same type of thing. So the ability to prioritize the assignments you have and to get them in on time and done well will really help you when you are in project management and you have paper, contracts due, or, reports that you have to present, that sort of thing. So,
Okay. Yeah. Peter, anything to add?
I think Christendom's good at training you how to see relationships between a lot of various types of disciplines. And when in construction you've got all your disciplines. You've got structure, you've got like your facade systems, you've got HVAC guy, electrical, plumbing, you've got all your finished trades, and they all interact, and they're all interconnected both in schedule and in space and time. They're all interconnected, and to be able to have that training, to be able to see much more abstract connections between more abstract concepts. When you get out into, for example, a construction site, being able to say, okay, we have this problem over here. I know that that's going to affect this, and this down the line. Let me get out in front of those problems. Or even more proactively, how can we do something over here that is going to prevent such and such problems that I've already foreseen down the road? That makes you invaluable, because, like I said, $200 billion worth of rework every year. You can stop some of that by anticipating those problems. So that makes your salary whatever you want it to be. If you can get rid of $1 billion worth of problems in a year,
Sure.
you're invaluable.
I love it. Talk to me about certifications within project management, because my understanding is that there is something called PMP, Project Management Professional, but you can't necessarily go for it until you've worked in project management for a few years. Have any of you looked into this at all?
yeah,
Yes?
a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell us what you know.
So I have 2 certifications. They're with specific types of project management. A specific type called Agile Project Management. It's just different ways to manage a project. The whole idea is that it's very fluid. You check up on things daily. It's a lot of reiteration in order to produce a final project. But right now, I'm working on what's called the Certified Associate Project Manager, which is basically a certification that you can get as basically entry level, 1 to 3 years, when you're not quite ready for your PMP yet.
Okay.
But it can be a good certification to have and work towards in order to kind of prep for the PMP, which would be 5 to maybe 7 years down the road.
Okay.
So.
Okay, that's helpful to understand. Have either of you looked into any extra certifications?
I've looked into it only so far as it could be a good thing down the road, but it's
Down the
not
road.
needed for what I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly there's sort of construction certifications like PE, professional engineer,
Okay.
and all the various forms that that can take. And a lot of people get MBAs. I've never actually seen a PMP at Clark
Oh.
Construction. Most people will either go sort of the engineering route or MBA.
Okay, very interesting. So you brought up a point made me think of something. What kind of software are you all using to do your communications, your check-ins, how are you keeping track of everything that people on the team are doing? Peter?
I use as few modes of technology as our subcontractors can handle.
Okay.
You've got Chuck in a truck showing up to do your concrete. He doesn't have tools. He's got a phone and he's got his truck. So you got to keep it simple.
Okay.
And if you're going to go out on a limb, it should be for your own internal use.
Okay.
So for internal use, obviously we use Excel and the whole Microsoft suite. And learning how to use that really effectively, not just like, oh yeah, I know Excel. Learning how to like write your own macros. Automate the tasks that drive you crazy because of how tedious they are. Automate it. Figure out how to do that. It's not that hard.
And there's a LinkedIn learning course for it.
Figure out how to do that because you're going to want to know. Microsoft Suite, and then for scheduling, I don't know if you use this, Daniel. Oracle is a software developing company that has a program called P6, Primavera, that is essentially a database that
We work on Primavera, and I never knew what it
I have problems.
did.
I know who to call. Yeah, it's a database with scheduling logic built into it. So if you've got a project with 10,000 activities, they're all tied together in this very complicated network, you can hit schedule, and it'll build this waterfall based on all those relationships, and you can update, okay, now this is done, this is done, this is done, this isn't done, schedule again, and it shows you where you are. So it's actually extremely useful. It doesn't work a lot of the time, so I'll need some help.
When it works, it's useful.
It's incredibly useful.
Okay. Gail?
Yeah, we've used a lot of the same thing, Microsoft Suite, so communicating internally with teams, having meetings virtually that way. We have also used Confluence or Jira boards to track tasks, group them by either what state they're in or by organization of like what the task is for, and being able to kind of see visually on a board your progress and as things move from planned to in action to complete, signed off, etc. So yeah, being familiar with those different types of ways to track a project's progress is helpful as well.
So it's funny because I deal with exactly the same thing as Peter. Part of why our company exists and what we do every single day is taking, Chuck in a truck and his cell phone and being able to present something to, a banker or a professional who doesn't understand Chuck in a truck and being able to translate in between. So, the contractor, he doesn't have a database. He's not going to, he's not going to fill out little reports every day and I'm going to do this and this and this. He'll send you a picture and be like, okay, I did this. And then we have a database so we can track individual jobs and then just take notes, figure out where things are at. We have a separate database for contractors and then another database for client information. So go ahead.
Do they have names?
Yeah, it's Airtable is our primary one.
Airtable's my favorite thing in the world.
Really? Okay,
yes,
I like
I
Airtable.
use it for everything.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've heard Kristen use it a little bit. So Airtable's great. We actually migrated into a new database system and took all of, so when I first started, it was 4 of us. And we sort of had a lot of the, we had an old database, it was very clunky, it was basic Airtable. Before that, before I came on, it was an Excel spreadsheet. And so it's grown, but being able, we sort of implemented a new system where we can track contractors and then different properties where we're working. So
Yeah.
most of that's Excel based.
Okay.
It's all, so you can, it's basically just a front end for Excel. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And by the way, Airtable is like Excel on steroids. You can color code things, you can group things, you can, I mean, more than color code you can do in Excel. It's pretty incredible. And Gail was talking about the different kind of status of projects and different tasks. You can do that in Airtable. And you can have it color coded and dated, and you can make calendars and yeah. If you need any help, Anna Enyart can help you because she's in Airtable every day for me too. We love it. So, if you love color coding and you love organizing and you love checking things off a list and you love making lists and helping people achieve those things on the list, seems like project management could be for you. So we're coming close to time, so I'm trying to think of which question to ask. I guess, what last tip or piece of advice would you give our students if they are looking at project management? And actually, I did think of another question. But what tips in general, as they're, I don't know, a lot of you are freshmen, I think. So, they have several more years to go. What kind of general professional career advice would you give them?
I would say sort of two of them are really important. One is don't go into a job expecting, hey, I graduated from Christendom, I have a diploma, I deserve X salary, you should just give it to me. Go into your job understanding I have to earn whatever salary I'm making, and my success should, and obviously your salary is going to reflect what you put in and how much you're willing to actually work. So don't have an expectation of I graduated from Christendom, so I should automatically just be handed a great job with a great salary and maybe not as much work as you would like. So put in the work and add value to wherever you're at. I think the other thing is, it seems I just lost it.
That does bring up, do you all get paid on commission of any sort based on projects? Okay, there's nothing extra that you're earning, but possibly bonuses.
Bonuses, yeah.
Okay, great. Continue. Advice, tips? Yeah, Gail?
Yeah, I think, just practically as a student, what I said before of being on top of your schedule and your academics, I think is really helpful on a personal note and honing those skills. I think also, at your time here, there's so many different things to get involved in to hone different skills. I think you kind of mentioned that earlier, Daniel. Taking advantage of that, kind of what Peter said, joining a club, being able to kind of practice leading meetings. You could even view, going to your professor for office hours as practice for honestly like executive communication, because they're not your peer. You do have to report to them in some sense. So, taking advantage of the things that Christendom offers while you're here, and then, during your time, either if you have to work while you're a student or on the summers that you're home, staying on top of looking for professional opportunities, looking for internships. I wish that I did an internship before my, last summer, before my senior year, So the earlier that you can get professional experiences at companies, perhaps at an internship level, will really help you and really open up your possibilities for a job after you graduate.
Yeah, thanks.
This is specifically while they're at Christendom?
Yeah.
Or can I also say like something right after Christendom?
Oh, sure, yes, that
So
too.
while you're at Christendom, like I said, learn how to lead, and not just lead meetings. Learn how to lead, because there is a really ridiculous shortage of leadership. It's impossible to find anyone who people want to follow. It's maybe 1 in 100 people who are supposed to be leaders are actually like good leaders. Work on it now so that you've got a head start in whatever way you can. If it's a club, even if it's just taking initiative, and don't just participate, lead. That would be my exhortation while you're here. Don't just participate, lead. You don't have to lead everything, but lead something and do it well. And then when you get to whatever profession you're going into, if it's project management, in whatever field, you got to learn. Christendom people are very good at the big picture, but and that's harder. So, well done. But if you're just living in the big picture, as a project manager, you're going to fail because you have to be able. Successful project managers can take the 20,000 foot view, but as soon as things go wrong, now you're on the ground. Now you're in the field and you're dealing with whatever it is. This piece doesn't fit and it's on our critical path on the schedule. Every second we lose here is a second we lose on the longest path to completion on the job, right? So you are being delayed currently, and you have to figure out how to make this exact thing work. And if you aren't familiar with how all the surrounding things and all the little technical details fit into this, you're going to make the wrong decision on how to do that, and you're going to compound the problem.
Interesting.
And while it might look good at 20,000 feet, if you don't first get into the weeds and understand, go out and talk to, in my case, it's the tradespeople. Like, okay, how do you actually install this work? And let them tell you. They'll tell you. They love it. That's what they do. They've been doing it for 40 years, half of these guys. They'll tell you exactly how it's done, how it should be done, how it can be done. And that's going to serve you a whole lot better than staying at 20,000 feet.
Okay, thanks. That's really helpful. Okay, so my last question is, how can our students get internships with you all and your companies?
Well, I know one student, he graduated class of 23, Matteo Stocco, did a summer internship with Level 1. He transitioned into sort of a part-time internship his senior year and then moved on to another company. If you ever want to have an internship with Level 1, email is a great way. Tim, my boss, the owner of the company, is super responsive with emails. If you ever have questions about it, Kristen is more than happy to put you in touch. If you had anything you were very interested now, talk to me afterwards. I can get your contact info and pass it along to the owner and go from there. So.
Okay.
I think for my company personally, or the one I work for, BSO, they come once a year, twice a year? Or
They haven't
something?
had much recently.
Okay.
No.
Interesting.
More full-time jobs have been advertised, not as many internships.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense, yeah. Well, I know BSO has their own job board, so, they post some entry-level positions, and it's all across the board. There's some stuff for project management, some for a lot of entry-level jobs for desktop support or IT, if you're interested in that. Of course, if any of you are interested, I'm on LinkedIn, feel free to connect. And, it is helpful that the founder of VSO and a lot of the other co-founders are Christendom alumni, so they're very familiar with Christendom students. And if you're interested in project management, reach out to Mrs. Stevens here, and she has her connections as well.
The Clark does a summer internship, about probably 75 to 100 people just in this area
Wow.
every
Okay.
summer. So the link is always on the website. Submit there. Give me a email me your resume, give me a call, so I can actually write you an actual recommendation instead of, I know this person went to Grissom, and I know Grissom's a good school, blah, blah, blah. Give me a call.
Yeah.
Once you've actually put in your application, then I will be able to put in a recommendation
Okay.
officially. I can't do it out of the blue.
Sure.
You have to put in the application first.
Okay. Do you know the timeline of, like, are they accepting applications right now?
Yeah, they're accepting application now. They typically do January interviews,
Okay.
I think. So
Yeah, that's good to know if
soon.
anybody's
Do it soon.
interested.
Submit by December probably.
Okay. So that is actually, brings up a good point that there are a lot of other big companies that do that same thing, that they won't look at your resume and your application unless you have a referral or recommendation from somebody. Not that that's what you're saying, that they won't look at it, but it really helps. So Booz Allen Hamilton is a really, really, really big company, and they do too many things that I can't accurately describe it. But we have an alum who works there, and he is very willing to talk to you if you're interested in applying, and he will do the referral for you for Christendom students. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, I am going to give you all a chance to ask questions. Where is Gabrielle? Is she out there? Raise your hand if you have a question for our project managers. Oh, goodness gracious. We've got the microphone somewhere. It is on, I think. Does anybody have a question? Yes. Go ahead. Oh, what's the difference between a project manager and a contractor? Peter?
We sign our change orders to our owners as name, comma, contractor. So really there's no difference. The PM is the one who is the contractor, the general contractor really. So really if we were being specific, it would be the contractor is the company, and then the PM is the manager on that contract. But yeah, I mean, we call ourselves the contractors.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really helpful to know. Similar or
Yeah,
no?
I would echo that. Our company is basically just a nationwide general contractor. So
Okay.
you might have a local general contractor who, works in Front Royal, and he has a tile guy, a plumber, a framer, and he'll build a whole house ground up, and he handles all of that. We sort of do the same thing, just on a nationwide level.
Okay. I saw a hand closer to the front. Yes, Daniel.
So, Gail, I know you mentioned having presentations to work on a deadline, and Daniel, I know you get work-related calls. And so I'm wondering if you can talk about what a workday look like and what it looks like dealing with projects within a sort of 9-to-5 office job, and what work goes into being a project manager outside of that framework.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just repeat the question really quickly so it can be heard. So what does day-to-day look like, and how often are you working kind of outside normal work hours?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that is actually something that I experienced, or I even had that question going into this field. So day to day, it's a lot of prepping for the project, a lot of planning, a lot of communicating, whether that's on the first project that I did, it was more, planning where people were going to stay, how they were going to get there. The project that I'm on now is more steady state management of servers, and we have allotted times where we perform maintenance on servers, and those are called maintenance windows. There's usually 3 per month, and for that maintenance window, we coordinate what will happen, when it will happen, who will do it, and all of the dependencies of the different tasks. So a lot of organization and communication to other technical peers of, okay, hey, like, can this go at the same time? Are you going to be the one performing that, etc. Bundled up into project management, we have weekly meetings with the client where we have PowerPoint presentations where we show the progress of, projects, different things that are going on that could affect us, reporting on those aspects. And so that, I think, is kind of all involved in the typical 9 to 5. I will say it does vary on, on project, but you may work Monday through Friday 9 to 5, but if your project is also working on the weekend, you could get called on a Saturday, hey, like I need something, and then you'll have to call someone else, figure it out. Sometimes that's on, that happened to me more on my first project that I was on, the more on the whim type calls. Didn't happen every weekend, but definitely was always a possibility when there was weekend work. And then the project that I'm on now, the maintenance windows are after hours most of the time, but they are planned out throughout the whole year. So I know exactly when I'm working, either in the evening or honestly sometimes overnight till 6 a.m., in June next year. So you have to be a little flexible, in all honesty, of when you are available to work. But for me, I found that at least if I know ahead of time that I'll be working a weekend or something, I'm okay with it because I can plan around it. So, but you do have to be a little open to that variability of your schedule.
Yeah, that's helpful to know. Yeah. And Daniel, are you getting calls at 11 o'clock all the time?
No.
Or just
So I think part of that is sort of being good at the project management thing is knowing, is this 11 o'clock phone call something I can click and ignore till the morning, or is it something I need to answer now? And so it's sometimes, yes, you will end up, somebody's heat goes out at 11 o'clock and they call you, and now you have to go figure out who can, get out there and fix their heat. So that happens occasionally. And there, especially when I was first starting, what you sort of put into it is what you'll get out of it. So yeah, you can very much have a 9 to 5, and I get in at 9, I leave at 5, my phone's off, I'm done, great, and that's fine, but you're not going to be as productive. So about once a week I'll stay late in the office doing, because you'll be answering phone calls and doing a lot of the back and forth day-to-day running of a job, and then afterwards there's paperwork. And sometimes I'll stay till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, crank out a bunch of paperwork so that I just couldn't get done during the day because I was on the phone or on emailing clients, that sort of thing. I would say, yeah, so it's flexible, understanding again, what you get out of it is what you're willing to put in. So if you're like, hey, I'm not reachable after 5 o'clock, I can think of at least 2 jobs that were sort of emergency calls that I took after hours and turned into very large jobs and, bigger jobs, more money. So, if you're willing to do that, great. You can make more money, you can be more successful, and, sort of, again, build that value towards the company that you're working at. And hopefully, not always, but hopefully, at least at level 1, that's very much the case. The more value you add to the company, the more you're going to get out of it. So there's a direct correlation between sort of what you're willing to do and how hard you're willing to work and what you get out of that. So.
Okay. Great. All right, and Peter, tell us a little bit about day-to-day. Are there a lot of outside of hours calls and work?
Yeah, so in the world of contracting, lunch is 10 a.m.
Because you're starting so early that you're
Yeah,
starving by
so-
10? Okay.
Yeah, I usually will have a call by 6,
Wow.
or during the 6 o'clock hour. So that's when the field teams get on site, really. They start at 6. They take off at 2, but their office stays till 5.
Wow.
So I'm communicating with both sides of it. So I need to be able to field a call from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m., just normal time. Now, that doesn't mean I have to be sitting in front of my computer doing work during that time. I think the 9 to 5, 8 hour a day, that whole idea, it doesn't really work for salaried employees. You're not paid, everyone knows the difference between paid by the hour and paid by the job. If you're salaried, you're paid by the job. And you have to get the job done, whatever that takes. Now, some days that might mean 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I just finished a training where they intentionally gave us 20-hour work days. We got 4 hours of sleep for a week.
Wow.
Just to see if we could handle it, see if we were still able to perform. Because sometimes,
torture.
sometimes you have, we take some very difficult projects where sometimes you have to do that. And those 4 hours of sleep might be in your car. Like, when things really go bad, to actually deliver, you might have to do that. Now, on the flip side of that, that means when things are good, you shouldn't be refreshing your inbox. Mm-hmm. If it's the middle of the afternoon and you get done with your work, you should leave, right? Mm-hmm. That's the attitude that a salaried employee should have. So day to day, there is no day to day with construction. Hopefully you're progressing, and every day is different. Every day is a new thing, with new demands on you and on your team. So yeah, you have to be able to live with that and to plan around it. Like Gail said, it's like be able to look ahead and say, okay, well, next week's going to be crazy, but this week, we're in a good spot. Like, we've prepared for the crazy week. All right, I'm going to take off at 2. So don't get into project management, or at least don't get into construction if you're looking for 8 hours a day consistently. But they make it worth your while to be able to do that.
Okay, that's really helpful. Well, just to be mindful of everybody's time, I am going to wrap up there. They'll hang out for a little bit to answer any individual questions. I really appreciate everything you all shared tonight. I learned a lot, as I usually do with these. And if you all will give them a round of applause to thank them for being here.